The community center buzzed softly with the low murmur of conversations and the occasional clink of coffee cups against chipped ceramic saucers. Folding chairs were scattered unevenly across the room, some occupied by locals who had come for the weekly storytelling night, their faces a blend of curiosity and casual indifference. The fluorescent lights flickered faintly overhead, casting a pale glow on the peeling paint of the walls, lending the space a worn but familiar feel. Sarah Lawson stood at the front, her hands clenched loosely in front of her, knuckles paling under the pressure. She was young, barely 24, with a quiet demeanor that seemed at odds with the energy of the room. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, strands escaping to frame a face marked by faint lines of tension and sleepless nights. Her eyes, however, held something deeper, a flicker of determination barely visible beneath the weight of nerves. The audience shifted restlessly. A few exchanged whispers, some glanced at their phones, and a couple of older women tooted softly. It was clear that Sarah's presence was met with skepticism. This was a crowd accustomed to boisterous tales, exaggerated exploits, and the occasional joke-laden anecdote. A young woman standing alone, ready to bare her soul, was an anomaly. Sarah cleared her throat, her voice low but steady as she began. "I'm here to tell you about loss. About what it means to fight through the darkness when it feels like no one's watching, no one's listening." Her words hung in the air, fragile but earnest. A smirk flickered on the lips of a man in the back. "Sounds like another sob story," he muttered just loud enough for those nearby to hear. A few heads nodded in agreement. The room's atmosphere thickened with doubt, the invisible barrier between speaker and audience solidifying. Undeterred, Sarah pressed on. "I lost my father when I was 10. Cancer. It took him slowly, but it took everything from me, my childhood, my sense of safety. After that, things got harder. School wasn't just school anymore. It was a battlefield." Her gaze dropped momentarily, voice trembling with the weight of memory. A woman in her 40s, arms crossed tightly, scoffed. "Everyone's got a story. Doesn't mean it's worth telling." Her tone was sharp, dismissive. Sarah's throat tightened, but she swallowed the sting. "I'm not asking for pity," she said softly, "just for you to listen." The words barely rose above a whisper, yet they carried an unexpected quiet strength. The crowd remained unmoved, some faces registering impatience, others outright disbelief. Whispers of overdramatic and too young to have it that bad rippled through the room. Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs, a frantic tempo that threatened to drown her calm. She shifted her weight, fingers flexing nervously. "I know it's hard to believe someone like me could have lived through what I'm about to share. I don't fit the image of someone who suffered. I look like I'm just another face in the crowd." Her eyes scanned the room, catching the skeptical glances and the subtle sideways smirks. A few younger attendees exchanged looks, their expressions a blend of curiosity and caution. They whispered among themselves, questioning the legitimacy of Sarah's narrative. The barrier between her and the audience was still firm, the gulf of disbelief unyielding. Yet beneath the surface of her quiet exterior, Sarah's story held a hidden depth, one that had yet to be uncovered. Something physical, tangible, and deeply meaningful was concealed beneath the layers of her ordinary appearance. It was a part of her past that, once revealed, would challenge the doubts in the room and create a profound shift in perception. Her voice lowered, almost hesitant but resolute. "There's more to my story than just words. More than what you see." She paused, letting the silence settle like a heavy curtain. "It's something I carry with me, every day." The audience leaned in slightly, caught by the sudden change in tone. The whispers died down, replaced by an expectant hush. Even the skeptics' laughter faltered, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Sarah took a breath, steadying herself. "I know you want me to be the girl who cried wolf, or the one who makes tragedy a performance. But I'm not here for that. I'm here because my story matters, and because sometimes, the quietest voices have the loudest truths." A man near the front, an older gentleman with graying hair and a thoughtful gaze, nodded slowly. "Go on," he encouraged softly, his voice breaking through the room's tension. Sarah's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, a fragile hope blooming within her. The night stretched ahead, filled with potential and the promise of revelation. For now, the room was still a battleground of belief and doubt, but beneath it all, something was shifting, an unspoken promise that the story unfolding was far from ordinary. The community center's walls seemed to close in, the air thick with anticipation. Sarah's tale was poised on the edge of transformation, waiting for the moment when the hidden would surface, and the audience would be forced to confront the truth behind the quiet young woman who dared to speak. The room held its breath, the silence stretching taut between Sarah and the skeptical faces that surrounded her. For a moment, it seemed as if the walls themselves leaned in, eager to catch the next word, the next fragment of truth she was about to share. Yet the weight of doubt lingered, like a shadow threatening to swallow the fragile hope flickering in her eyes. Sarah's hands trembled slightly, but her voice found a steady cadence as she continued. "I'm not just here to tell you about loss. I'm here to tell you about survival, about the battles fought in the quiet corners, where no one's watching." Her gaze swept across the room, searching for any sign of connection amid the sea of doubtful expressions. A young man near the back scoffed, arms crossed defiantly. "Sounds like you're trying to make yourself sound important. Everyone's been through something." His tone was sharp, dismissive, as if challenging her very right to stand there. Sarah didn't flinch. Instead, she took a measured breath and pressed on. "Maybe that's true. We all have our stories. But mine isn't just about what happened to me, it's about what I've done since. About how I've fought to rise from the ashes." Her voice grew firmer, resonating with a quiet fire that caught a few off guard. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some skeptical, some intrigued. A woman near the front shifted in her seat, eyes narrowing as if reconsidering her initial judgment. But others remained unmoved, their expressions hardened by disbelief. "Prove it, then," a voice called from the back, rough and impatient. "What have you done that's so special?" Sarah met the challenge without hesitation. "I've spent years working with those who've been broken by life's cruelty, helping them find strength when hope felt impossible." Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken battles and quiet victories. The audience exchanged glances, some whispers rising like cautious ripples. "Sounds like a cliché," muttered a man near the side. "Anyone can say that." But Sarah's calmness did not waver. Instead, it deepened, becoming a shield and a beacon all at once. "I'm not here to win your approval," she said softly, "but to share a truth that's taken me a long time to own." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, a testament to the scars beneath her composed exterior. A pregnant pause settled over the room, broken only by the faint hum of the overhead lights. The tension thickened, a fragile bubble of anticipation waiting to burst. Then, as if summoned by the charged silence, Sarah's voice dropped to a near whisper. "There's something I've carried with me, something that has shaped every step I've taken. It's hidden beneath the surface, something you wouldn't expect." Her gaze locked with the crowd, daring them to look beyond the surface. The room shifted subtly. Skepticism flickered, replaced by a tentative curiosity. The smirks and scoffs softened, replaced by furrowed brows and quiet whispers. Sarah's fingers moved almost imperceptibly, brushing the sleeve of her shirt. "What I'm about to show you isn't just ink on skin. It's a map of my journey, a symbol of survival, hope, and the strength to keep moving forward." A murmur of disbelief swept through the audience. Some exchanged doubtful glances, others leaned forward, captivated despite themselves. "Is this some kind of stunt?" a voice challenged, sharp and incredulous. Sarah shook her head gently. "No stunt. Just a story told in a language I've chosen to wear permanently, one that speaks louder than words ever could." Her expression was steady, unwavering. The room fell into a charged silence once more. The air was thick with anticipation, the atmosphere electric with the promise of revelation. Eyes fixed on her, waiting for the moment when the hidden truth would surface, breaking through the veil of doubt that had clouded the evening. Sarah took a slow, deliberate breath. The seconds stretched, each heartbeat echoing loudly in her ears. Then, with a quiet resolve, she rolled up her sleeve, revealing skin marked by an intricate, swirling tattoo that snaked from her wrist up toward her elbow. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The design was striking, complex patterns woven together with delicate precision, symbols that hinted at pain and triumph, loss and hope. It was not just a tattoo, it was a testament etched onto her very being. The woman who had scoffed earlier blinked, her arms uncrossing slowly as she stared at the ink. The young man who had challenged her sat forward, eyes wide with something between surprise and respect. Sarah's voice softened, carrying the weight of her journey. "This tattoo tells my story, the battles I've fought, the scars I carry, and the strength I've found in the darkest places. It's a reminder that even when life tries to break you, you can choose to rise." A tear slipped down a cheek in the front row, unnoticed amid the collective hush. The room's energy shifted palpably, the walls that once held judgment crumbling beneath the weight of shared humanity. "It's beautiful," whispered someone near the back, voice thick with emotion. Sarah lowered her arm, heart pounding but feeling a strange lightness settle over her. The revelation had pierced the armor of disbelief, stirring something deeper within the audience. A middle-aged man stepped forward cautiously, his voice gentle. "Thank you for sharing that. It's hard to see the strength beneath the surface sometimes." Nods of agreement rippled through the room. Faces once hardened by doubt now softened with empathy. The boundary between storyteller and listener blurred, replaced by a fragile connection forged in truth. Sarah met their eyes, gratitude blooming quietly within her. The journey was far from over, but for this moment, the room had opened a door to understanding, to compassion, to shared experience. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere warmed. Questions replaced skepticism, conversations blossomed where silence had reigned, and the community began to knit tighter around the threads of vulnerability Sarah had laid bare. Yet beneath the surface of this newfound connection, Sarah knew there were still battles ahead, stories yet untold, wounds yet to heal. But for now, the quiet woman with the hidden tattoo had spoken, and the world had listened. A hush fell over the room, thick and expectant, as Sarah's bare arm caught the dim overhead light, the tattoo tracing a path of intricate swirls and symbols that seemed almost alive beneath her skin. The audience sat breathless, caught between disbelief and awe, their earlier skepticism dissolving into something far more profound. The tattoo was not merely ink, it was a tapestry of pain and perseverance, a silent testament to battles fought in shadows no one else had dared to enter. Sarah's fingers brushed lightly over the design, tracing the edges of a phoenix rising from ashes, a symbol long synonymous with rebirth and resilience. Her voice, soft but steady, broke the silence. "This bird represents more than just a myth. It's the story of my father's death, the loss that shattered my world, and the promise I made to myself to rise again. Every line here marks a moment I survived when I thought I couldn't." Eyes widened across the room. The woman who had scoffed earlier wiped a tear discreetly, her stern facade faltering. A young man near the back leaned forward, his usual bravado replaced by a rare, vulnerable curiosity. The tattoo was no longer just a design, it was a language, speaking truths far deeper than words could convey. Sarah continued, voice gaining strength with each revelation. "Alongside the phoenix are symbols of the battles I fight every day, the nights filled with fear, the moments when hope seemed lost. This spiral, for example, is my journey through grief and healing, a constant reminder that progress isn't linear, but a winding path." The room was transformed. The air, once heavy with doubt, now shimmered with empathy. Faces softened, and the collective breath of the audience seemed to synchronize with the rhythm of Sarah's story. The barriers that had kept them apart crumbled, replaced by a shared recognition of the universal struggle beneath individual pain. A tear traced a line down the cheek of a middle-aged man seated near the front. He cleared his throat, voice thick with emotion. "I lost my wife 2 years ago. I know what living with that kind of pain feels like. You showing this, sharing your story like this, it's powerful." His words echoed the silent feelings of many who had remained quiet until now. Sarah nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "It's hard to bear pain alone. That's why I wear this, not just for me, but for everyone who's felt invisible, who's hidden their scars out of fear or shame." Her eyes scanned the room, meeting gazes no longer clouded by judgment, but softened by understanding. The tattoo's intricate details told stories of hope amid despair, a small candle flickering against darkness, a knot unraveling to reveal light, each symbol a chapter in Sarah's unspoken narrative. The audience found themselves drawn not just to the art, but to the courage it represented, a defiant stand against suffering that refused to be silenced. Murmurs of connection rippled through the crowd. "I see my own struggles in that," whispered a woman near the back, voice trembling with newfound honesty. A young man nodded, wiping a hand across his face, his earlier mockery replaced by a solemn respect. Sarah's gaze softened, the weight of the moment settling upon her like a gentle embrace. "This tattoo is more than skin deep. It's a bridge between the pain I've carried and the hope I want to share. It's a reminder that we're not alone in our battles, even when it feels like it." Her words struck a chord, resonating through the room like a quiet anthem. A ripple of applause broke out, tentative at first, then growing steadier as the audience rose to their feet. Some wiped tears away, others reached out to Sarah, offering words of thanks and solidarity. The room, once a crucible of doubt, had become a sanctuary of shared humanity. As the applause died down, a young woman stepped forward, her voice small but clear. "Thank you for showing us. For being brave enough to wear your story." Her words were a balm, a recognition that transcended the barriers of age and experience. Sarah nodded, humbled but resolute. "There's strength in vulnerability," she said, "and sometimes, the most profound stories are the ones we carry silently beneath the surface." The community center seemed to breathe with a new energy, the flickering fluorescent lights now casting a warm glow on faces transformed. Where there had been judgment, there was now compassion. Where there had been doubt, there was now belief. In this shared moment, Sarah's hidden tattoo had become a beacon, not just of her own survival, but of the resilience and hope that resides within each person willing to confront their pain and reveal their truth. The night stretched on, conversations blossoming around the unspoken bond forged in that room. Strangers became allies, and a community began to knit itself together with threads of empathy and understanding. Yet beneath the surface of this collective awakening, Sarah knew her journey was far from complete. The tattoo was a chapter, not the whole story, a symbol of battles won, but also of those still to come. For now, though, the room held its breath no longer in doubt, but in reverent acknowledgement. The quiet young woman with the intricate ink had spoken her truth, and in doing so, had opened a doorway to healing, for herself, and for those who dared to listen. The room buzzed softly with renewed warmth, a subtle hum of voices blending into a tapestry of shared experience. The transformation was palpable, where once there had been skepticism and distance, now there was connection and openness. Sarah sat quietly, her arms still exposed, the tattoo now a bridge that had drawn the community closer, unraveling the threads of doubt and weaving new bonds of understanding. A woman approached hesitantly, her eyes moist with unspoken emotion. "I never thought I could relate to someone so young," she confessed, voice trembling. "But your story, it's made me think about my own losses in a way I hadn't before." She reached out, briefly touching Sarah's forearm, a silent gesture of solidarity. Around her, others nodded in agreement, faces softening as they shared their own quiet struggles. The room, once a stage for judgment, had become a sanctuary where vulnerability was met with empathy rather than scorn. A middle-aged man who had sat stiffly through the earlier moments now leaned forward, his voice low but earnest. "I've spent years hiding my pain, pretending it wasn't there. Seeing your tattoo, hearing your story, it's made me realize the strength in showing our scars." His admission hung in the air, a powerful acknowledgement that rippled through the crowd. Sarah listened, a calm resolve settling over her. Each conversation, each confession, was a thread strengthening the fragile fabric of community. The invisible walls that separated them, walls of disbelief, judgment, and isolation, were crumbling, replaced by openness and shared humanity. The evening stretched on, stories unfolding in quiet corners, laughter mingling with tears. People who had arrived as strangers now exchanged names and phone numbers, promising to support one another beyond the confines of the community center. Sarah's tattoo, once hidden beneath layers of fabric and doubt, had become a symbol, not just of her own resilience, but of the unseen battles carried by many. It was more than body art, it was a testament to the courage it takes to confront pain and the healing power of being seen. As the crowd began to thin, several individuals approached Sarah directly, their voices sincere and grateful. A young woman with a tentative smile said, "You've given me the courage to start sharing my story. I've been too afraid before." Her words carried the weight of a promise, a seed of change planted in fertile ground. An older man clasped Sarah's hand firmly. "Thank you for reminding us that strength often hides beneath the surface. We forget that sometimes the quietest people have the loudest truths." His gaze held a newfound respect, a recognition that transcended words. Sarah nodded, feeling a quiet pride mingled with humility. The night had shifted something fundamental within the community, opening doors to understanding and compassion that had long remained closed. As the last of the attendees filed out into the cool night air, the community center settled into stillness. The echoes of shared stories and softened hearts lingered, a testament to the power of vulnerability and the unexpected ways truth can transform. Sarah gathered her things slowly, the weight of the evening's revelations resting gently on her shoulders. Her tattoo was no longer just a personal emblem, it had become a beacon for others, a reminder that beneath every surface lay stories waiting to be told and heard. She paused at the doorway, taking one last look at the empty room, now charged with the memory of connection. The journey ahead remained uncertain, but tonight had forged a path toward healing, not just for her, but for the community she had touched. In that moment, Sarah understood that her story was no longer hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had dared to listen, to see beyond appearances, and to embrace the profound truths that define us all. The night's quiet solidarity promised something more, a future where judgment gave way to empathy, and where the hidden struggles of many could find light in the shared strength of community. The first light of dawn filtered softly through the cracked windows of the community center, casting long shadows across the empty chairs and silent walls. The room, once alive with whispered confessions and tentative connections, now held the quiet residue of a night transformed. Sarah Lawson stood near the door, her gaze distant yet resolute, feeling the weight of what had just unfolded settle within her like an ember ready to ignite. Her journey, she knew, had taken a turn, not an end, but a beginning. The hesitant smiles, the shared tears, the hands that had reached out in solidarity, they had all woven her story into the fabric of this community. She was no longer just a young woman with a hidden tattoo, she had become an unspoken symbol of hope and courage, a quiet beacon for those who, like her, carried unseen burdens. Stepping outside, the cool morning air greeted her with a gentle embrace. The streets were still, the city waking slowly, unaware of the small revolution of empathy that had taken place just hours before. Sarah walked with measured steps, each footfall echoing the resolve growing inside her. The mission she had begun tonight was far from over. There were others, countless others, whose stories remained buried beneath layers of silence and fear. She thought of the young woman who had told her, trembling but determined, that Sarah's courage had given her the strength to begin sharing her own story. She thought of the older men who had confessed years of hidden pain, now willing to face it openly. These were not isolated moments but ripples in a widening sea of understanding. Sarah knew the path ahead would be challenging. Vulnerability was a fragile thing, often met with resistance and doubt. The world was quick to judge, slow to listen. But tonight had proven something vital, that when one person chooses to reveal their truth, it can inspire others to do the same, breaking down walls that seemed unbreakable. Her tattoo, once a secret shield, was now a banner. It bore witness to resilience and the power of embracing one's scars. But more importantly, it was a reminder that courage often wears a quiet face, and strength is sometimes found in the softest voices. As she moved through the awakening city, Sarah felt the stirrings of a mission taking shape, one that extended beyond herself, beyond the walls of the community center. She envisioned gatherings where stories could be shared without fear, where judgments were replaced by understanding, and where the invisible battles of many could find light and healing. She imagined a community knit together by empathy, a place where scars were not hidden but honored. And she knew she would be part of forging that future, standing alongside those who dared to speak and those brave enough to listen. The morning sun climbed higher, casting a warm glow over the streets and stirring the city to life. Sarah's shadow stretched long behind her, a silent testament to the journey she had embarked upon. It was a journey defined not by the pain she carried, but by the hope she carried forward, the hope that in revealing our deepest truths, we find not weakness, but the greatest strength. And so, with steady heart and quiet determination, Sarah walked on, ready to face the stories yet untold, the struggles yet unseen, and the lives waiting to be touched by the courage of one who dared to be heard.